there anybody else in the Rubenstein family, the whole extended family? Your name might not be Rubenstein. Are you a relative? Would you like to join this podcast? Aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, great aunts, third cousins once removed. Yes. If you picked up a program when you came in on the lavender paper, the Torah portion in Hebrew and English is there for you. So what Lena has just done for us is one of the things that we ask of our bar and bat mitzvah students as they come of age in our community. We ask that they take on additional responsibilities and leadership. One of the ways adults lead in a Jewish community is they learn skills and then they use them on behalf of the community. This is not an easy skill, reading from the Torah. It takes months of preparation, first becoming very familiar with the text, and then learning this ancient system of musical notation or tropes, which tells you how to sing the words. And finally, you have to master those skills so well that when you get to reading from the Torah, which has no vowels and no punctuation and no indication how to sing the words, you can do it with confidence and ease. So thank you so much for putting in the time to learn, and thank you, Vaughn, for being such a beautiful teacher to Lena. For the second aliyah, I'd like to invite Deborah and Tom to please come up. Yamo, Deborah, Vanderly, and Mordecai, Clavin, son of Sibani and Gola, Galia, Hashemiyah. So, as Joseph mentioned earlier, this is a very interesting rite of passage, bar and mitzvah, coming in right at the cusp of serious adolescence. At the very beginning, but kind of launching from puberty into young adulthood. And there's so many things that are going on for kids, so many intellectual and physical and emotional changes. It's actually quite a blessing that our tradition gives us a way to just stop and notice and actually celebrate this move into adulthood. It's a really interesting and sometimes challenging time for parents, as those of us who have had kids come through adolescence know. It means a different way of being with our kids. It means letting them become more and more the drivers and the decision makers in their lives, while holding a very strong and safe container for them as they're trying out all of their new independence. So our tradition has a blessing. It actually comes from the Talmud. In essence, it says, "Thank you, God, for releasing me from responsibility for this homework." And you know, maybe a few hundred years ago, that was actually what was happening. You know, a young man, age 13, could have been seeking, you know, the starting of a family and supporting his own livelihood. Today, of course, you know, we know it's a kind of long, slow turning arc. And, but it doesn't mean that there aren't some major differences and changes that are going on. So Lena, being a 14-year-old, has already started to kind of 14-year-old doesn't bring. And so I want to invite Deborah and Robin to say this ancient blessing, but also be able to kind of acknowledge what's actually happening here and now.
And I hereby release my daughter as an independent soul under the protective wings. We hereby release our daughter as an independent soul under the protective wings and guidance of Shekinah, the divine presence. She will begin to take full responsibility and the spiritual consequences for her choices in the presence of the congregation and declare her to be a young adult with both the freedoms and the responsibilities that this title implies.
Before the final Aliyah, which belongs to Lena, while the Torah is out and we're literally as close to its words as we can be, take a moment to think about those who are in need of healing. It might be you. It might be someone very close to you that you're thinking about today. It might just be a need for healing in the world. So we sing the words, please God, heal this one. And as we're chanting, please add the names of anybody that you would like to receive this blessing.
So I'd like to invite Lena and Ants to please come right back up and help us open the Ark. We're just about to display the Torah. If you get a chance to kind of just glance, you'll see that the negative 2. And then the Torah will be redressed and returned to the ark. So as the Torah is lifted and displayed, we ask that everyone please stand once again. And if the ark can be opened, that'd be great.
We're going to sing on the top of page G5 when you see the words.
Oh
for a bar bat mitzvah student, usually this is the first time that they've stepped forward as a teacher for our whole community. The process of preparing a drash is a long and engaged wrestling with ancient text that's thousands of years old, and text that has been wrestled with for centuries and centuries and centuries. So part of the process is becoming really familiar with the story. Part of the process is doing a scan of commentary that's been authored all of those years. And the most important thing that we try and encourage in our kids is that they add their own voice. They add their own unique perspective and insight. And that's how the tradition keeps going with string. So sometimes when you come to the text, you think, this is what I'm going to write about. And you start going there and you go into it and you think, and then something else draws your attention. This is what happened with Lena. So she chanted about the Nazarenes, where she was initially engaged, and then something else caught her attention. Something that is a new teaching for us, and we're very excited that she's come forward to teach all of us today.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks for coming out today. This morning I chanted from Parshat So from the book of Bamidbar, which means in the wilderness. In this part of the Torah, the Israelites have escaped slavery in Egypt and are traveling through the desert day and night, figuring out what to do next. In the beginning of the Parsha, God tells Moses to start organizing the people into their clans, each having their own duties relating to the tent of meeting. The tent of meeting was a part of the tabernacle, a place for people to honor God through ritual and sacrifice. Moses retells the laws and rules given by God that will be used when taking on the task of building the tabernacle. This portion also includes the vows of the Nazarites, men and women who take on extra responsibilities to deepen their connection to God. This is followed by the description of the process used to test the innocence of the sota, a woman suspected of committing adultery. Remember, these are people who have lived as slaves for many years, so these rules are helping them figure out how to live in their new community. Two things stood out to me in this parsha. I was fascinated by the amount of repetition of certain phrases and instructions, and I was troubled by the ordeal to test the woman suspected of adultery. First, let's look at the repetition. The text repeats the instruction to take a census for each of the 12 clans, and that instruction is repeated word for word in reference to each individual clan with only slight variation. This is followed by many other situations where certain commandments are repeated several times. Why do we see so much repetition in the Torah? What is the purpose of repetition in the text? Why is it valuable? Why? Repetition can be used to strengthen something, a skill, a habit, or even a performance. For example, in school, repetition is used as a way to help students develop good habits and skills. The more you practice something, the better you get. Every week in my social studies class, we use the Socratic method for class discussion. By repeating this process every week, we are developing good analysis and discussion skills with our peers. Repetition helps actors memorize their lines, and athletes improve their performance. But I think repetition is used differently in the Torah. In this parsha, it was necessary for Moses to repeat the needed tasks in order for the Israelites to remember the rules and instructions for how to build the tabernacle and support themselves. Giving these orders and rules might have been God's way of providing a support system to the Israelites by helping them build structure into their lives after their escape from Egypt. The newly freed slaves were probably unsure what to do. I mean, it's not like they had a pamphlet called What to Do After You Escape Egypt. Another phrase that is repeated throughout this part of the Torah is Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, which translates to, "And God spoke to Moses, saying." This phrase is repeated so often throughout the Torah that we could just skim over it and take it for granted. But if you really stop to think about it, the text is saying God spoke to Moses. God, an incomprehensible entity. Whether you believe this text literally or figuratively, this random person, who happens to be Moses, is telling the Israelites how to live their lives based on hearing from an entity that is beyond anything we are able to comprehend. What can this mean? Maybe the repeated phrase is there to remind the Israelites that even though God was the only one with a connection, even though that Moses was the only one with a connection to God, God was always by their side, every step of the way. It might also be there to remind the Israelites that God is giving these orders, and Moses is just the messenger. In addition to all of the repetition, the story of the sota, or woman suspected of adultery, really upset me. I found it frustrating how much suspicion and distrust towards women that's demonstrated. Here's what would happen. If a man was jealous and suspected his wife of being intimate with another man, she would go through a process where her innocence was tested.